Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Annie Brocious and I'm the Program Manager for the Arts and Business Council of Greater Nashville. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon for our mentorship interest session for the Periscope class of 2026. With me here are Jonathan Harwell-Dye, our Directors of Programs. I'd also like to introduce Rory Levine, a member of our Board of Directors and a longtime Periscope mentor, and Bryson Finney, Periscope class of 2023, Perfect Pitch Award recipient and mentor for the class of 2025. This session is being recorded, just so you all know, and once the video has been processed, we'll email everyone a link to the recording and to the slide deck for reference. So for anyone here who is new to the Arts and Business Council, we are an independent 501c3 nonprofit arts organization that leverages and unites the unique resources of the arts and business communities to create a thriving, sustainable, creative culture in Nashville and beyond. We do this by creating mutually beneficial partnerships between arts and business. We also provide direct services, key opportunities, and education for the creative community to help them master the business of art. We do this by hosting classes, workshops, and intensive trainings, as well as providing access to pro bono legal services, tax services, and more. And finally, we inspire workplace creativity in businesses to demonstrate the impact of the arts through tangible benefits and to develop lifelong arts participants and supporters. Membership is another way you can support our work. When you become a member of the Arts and Business Council at the supporter level, you join artists, art lovers, creative organizations, and leading Nashville area businesses in cultivating our creative community. You can learn more on our website at abcnashville.org/membership. So what is Periscope? Periscope is an intensive curriculum-based business accelerator for arts-based businesses. The goal is to empower these working artists to see their creative practice through the entrepreneurial lens, to shift their mindset to that of an artist entrepreneur. The core curriculum was originally developed with a group of partner organizations, in particular the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, with whom we still work closely to this day. This means understanding the underlying mechanisms of business that they can apply to their creative endeavors. These are the same tools that any entrepreneur would use to bring their work to market and to grow their business, but applied to a creative arts-based business. By shifting their mindset to that of an artist entrepreneur, they can utilize these tools to connect with the right customers for their work. When selecting a class, we asked our selection committee to consider diversity from every angle, such as socioeconomic, geographic, and artistic diversity, to build a balanced, well-rounded cohort. The artists accepted into the program have ranged from 22 to 80 years old and have been working professionally anywhere from 1 to 25 plus years. Some have been working full-time as an artist for years and have hit a plateau, and others are juggling multiple day jobs with the goal of making their creative business a more established part-time or full-time endeavor. These businesses can be for-profit or nonprofit. Periscope alumni include painters, photographers, dancers, musicians, jewelry makers, culinary artists, fashion designers, actors, and more. So as an overview of the program and curriculum, Periscope offers 9 weeks of in-person training on the big picture business modeling and functional business practices. We offer exchange through small group work throughout the training, 6 months of one-on-one mentorship, and exposure through our pitch and showcase event and year-round opportunities. So here is a brief look at the curriculum itself. We are going to begin this year with a Periscope class mixer and alumni panel, an evening event that allows artists to network within and across classes, and features an alumni panel discussion setting expectations for the cohort. We then start with our in-person classes that we have this year at Belmont University and also at the Entrepreneur Center. We begin with charting the course to artist entrepreneur. In our first classroom session, we begin with an in-depth orientation and an introduction to the breakout groups and facilitator. We close out the day with a panel discussion featuring local business owners and founders to discuss the barriers they overcame in the course of their entrepreneurship experience. The next day is focused on goal setting. Artists analyze their current career position and identify what they need to build the brightest future for their art. Take a look at what they are today, what they want to be, and what steps they need to build in between, and to clarify to themselves what the purpose is that drives them. Building a compelling proposition focuses on building a compelling, unique selling proposition, a USP, by learning from audience evaluations. They work on determining exactly who their customer is and how their artwork or service or they provide fulfills a particular need for someone and brings them value. Then framing your concept, the artist learned how to use a business model canvas, the idea frame, which was developed and shared with us by our friends at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. With it, the artist can break down and lay out all of the different aspects of their businesses to establish an understanding of their work, expenses, revenue, audience, and business structure to optimize the potential of that creative business. Then basics of getting to market. Using the AIDA sales funnel, artists explore the essential ingredients to building a successful marketing plan to promote their work. Business Not Hobbies is a walkthrough of the basics of what generates revenue, pricing strategies, and long-term business planning, creating the systems of what they need to build a sustainable small business. Getting Believers, once the artists understand who their work is for and why their customers value what they do, they begin to develop their elevator pitches to talk about their work in a way that'll help them gain believers and make use of other people's talents to achieve their strategic goals. They explore how to tell a compelling story to get people to take action and how they can become customers, partners, and evangelists. Making the ask. Using what they've learned, Periscope artist entrepreneurs begin to refine their business plans and get comfortable pitching. Whether it's on stage at the pitch event, in a boardroom, or at a coffee shop meetup, the Periscope pitch is a presentation of their business plan that helps the artist to gain the resources, partnerships that they need to get their business to the next level. And after each of those group sessions, for each day, they reconvene for an hour-long weekly afternoon session on special topics with art leaders, business professionals, and allies. Past topics have helped artists set actionable goals, negotiate more effectively to better understand their customers, and learn directly from experienced entrepreneurs who have built sustainable creative careers. This curriculum is cumulative. The information they receive and the work that they do in week 1, they'll use and revise in week 9. And in their group sessions in the middle, they work through all of it, brainstorm with each other, throw ideas at the wall, and directly apply what they are learning to their business. None of this is hypotheticals. They'll continue to apply these tools to develop their pitch and throughout mentorship and into the future of their business. Here's just a quick overview of the program timeline. Right now, we are in contact with the final selected artists, and on March 19th, the training begins. May 21st, the training ends, and mentorship begins shortly thereafter. Our goal is to have mentors identified for each mentee by about the week of May 11th. That following week, we'll host an online mentor orientation to get everybody who's been matched ready to go. And at the end of the week, I'll send introductory emails to mentors and mentees, and the mentorship period begins. And then we have the 2 rounds of preliminary pitches before the main event at the end of the year. So the first one is June 25th, the second is July 23rd, and the pitch and showcase is held in early September, usually the first or second Wednesday after Labor Day. So understanding mentorship. Mentorship is intended to be a one-on-one relationship that supports an artist in implementing the entrepreneurial tools they've gained through Periscope. Our mentors are not expected to be exclusively in the creative sector of business. These artists know their art and they know how to create it. The support they need is with the tools of business. So a mentor is someone that can bounce ideas off of, ask advice from, and who can provide support and guidance as they fine-tune their business plans they've been working on throughout the program. And if the artist chooses to participate, part of the mentor's role would be to help them prepare for the Periscope pitch competition. So just to run through these bullets real quick, duration, the formal mentorship runs for 6 months. The mentee may agree to more sessions or to work for a longer period of time. However you choose to structure a relationship, we want the mentors and mentees to establish clear and mutual expectations from the outset. So frequency, meetings should take place at least monthly for 1 hour. Additional communications are encouraged, especially in advance of Periscope pitch. As for the format, mentors and mentees can work together in whatever format suits them best, in person, by phone, or video conference, whatever works best for your mutual schedules. Responsiveness, mentors are encouraged to communicate via email or otherwise between sessions as needed to discuss problems, situations, or breakthroughs. Confidentiality: all mentor-mentee conversations are strictly confidential unless explicitly agreed to otherwise. I've had members call me and ask, hey, we worked together to get her website launched. Do you want to post on Instagram? And is that okay? And that is absolutely fine. The intent is for this mentor-mentee relationship to be comfortable so that everyone can work out ideas that aren't fully baked, bounce ideas around, and feel safe doing so. But again, celebrating success is a wonderful thing to do. And finally, we ask that there's no solicitation. Mentors are expected to engage in the relationship pro bono. And as such, there should be no marketing or selling of any kind during the formal mentorship. This is a two-way street, of course. If you do want to do business together, that's perfectly okay after that 6-month period concludes. This is a volunteer opportunity and a chance for you to make a mark on the creative community, and it's the artist's opportunity to learn and get a hand in fine-tuning those plans. So when we meet for that orientation session that I mentioned, we'll provide you with some resources to support you. We have a Periscope mentor guide and agreement, and this document lists out everything that I was speaking to in the last slide, and it's agreement between you and your mentee, not between you and the Arts and Business Council, to lay out the structure of your relationship, including scheduling and mutual expectations. We'll send you a copy of the idea frame. This is a business model canvas I mentioned before that we dedicate a full session to teaching them and that we hope that they will use going forward in their career. We'll send over the Periscope pitch parameters and scoring rubric for Periscope pitch. So should your mentee choose to participate in the pitch, they may ask you to help them prepare. And we, of course, do want them to participate in the showcase. All that information is there as well. We just celebrated the class of 2025 back on September 5th. It feels like it was just last week. We were over at Ozarts Nashville, and you may have been there. Again, Periscope Pitch and Artist Entrepreneur Showcase is the culminating event of the program, where the artists get to present their businesses to the broader creative and business communities in Nashville. There are 2 parts to this event. So here's some photos from this year's showcase. It's set up like a trade show or exhibition, where every one of our 25 artists in the class has a booth that they can set up, or a space for a booth that they can set up. The guests circulate and can have one-on-one conversations with the artists to learn about their businesses. There's no buying or selling at this showcase. It's all about making connections. It's everyone's opportunity to have a one-on-one pitch. Then the pitch portion of the event is where artists present their businesses on stage to an audience and a panel of judges for a chance to win cash and other prizes. We traditionally have up to 8 artists pitching, and that's what those 2 preliminary rounds are for. The first preliminary round is strictly for coaching, and the second, no scoring or anything, and the second round is an elimination round. We then conclude the evening to recognize and celebrate the entire class for their accomplishments and for all the work that they've done throughout the program. So to be selected for that final 8, I mentioned this already, they complete 2 preliminary rounds in the summer. We really do strongly encourage everyone to participate at least in that first round. If while you're working with your mentee, you realize that a pitch competition really isn't their thing, and they'd rather spend their time focused on digging into their business rather than the pitch, that's just fine. They're still considered to have completed the program. They're still strongly encouraged to be featured in the showcase and to walk on the stage to be recognized for their accomplishments in our graduation ceremony. So both of those preliminary rounds are closed to the public. And as mentors, usually help the artist to prepare for their pitches. At times they've also attended, but you're not required to come. The first round happens in June, and the artists pitch to a group of 3 to 4 coaches who offer valuable feedback to each participant so they can further refine their pitch and in turn fine-tune their business plans. The second round in July is an elimination round. The artists are scored by a panel of 3 to 4 judges, and those scores will determine the finalists who pitch at the final. These judges also provide written feedback. So whether or not they proceed to the finals, whether or not they even go to the second round, the artists have something of value to take away from them by going through this pitch process. And again, everyone in the class is strongly encouraged to participate in the showcase and the graduation, whether they choose to pitch or not. Each year, we have roughly 200 attendees, all from the business and creative community in Nashville, even going as far as to ask the artists for a wish list of connections for their businesses that we do our best to find and reach out to get them into the room. So this event is a true networking opportunity for all involved. And I want to make the point that Periscope isn't all about the competition. The pitch is a motivating target that requires you to get your business plan fully organized and ready. To create a good pitch, you need to be organized, have a fully fleshed out business plan that you know inside and out, and to be able to squeeze it into that 4 minutes. And so, with that pitch, whether you win or not, it's a tool that they now have in their toolkit. And briefly, what makes a perfect pitch? At every phase of the pitch process, the artists are scored on a scale of 1 to 5, with a score of 5 being excellent, in the categories of business acumen, artistic excellence, and overall presentation effectiveness. And again, as a mentor, your goal is to support with them with whatever that 6 months after the curriculum looks like, whether they are going through the pitch preliminary process or if they're just working on further developing their business plan. So now that you've listened to me through this period of time, thank you very much. I'd like to pass the mic on to Jonathan, Rory, and Bryson so that we can have a firsthand look at the Periscope mentor experience.
Rory, Bryson, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to start with Bryson because Bryson has been on kind of both sides of this equation. And so, Bryson, I wonder if you could talk about it from your experience going into Periscope as an artist, sort of what that experience was like leading up to mentorship, what you were thinking, like what was in the mind of you as an artist going into mentorship. I think that's a really great place to start our conversation.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, everybody. It's great to be here. I coming from the education background and also as an artist, I had a goal to launch a nonprofit. And so I was already running a music festival here in Nashville. I was doing a lot of things, but I needed to make sense of it all. And my goal was to make a living out of the things that I'm doing and love to do, my passions. And so, so that's what my mindset was going into Periscope. As the business side was completely new to me. I hadn't really thought that through, to be honest, and I didn't have any experience. I just knew I loved music. I knew I loved impacting and working with children and providing opportunities for them through music. And so to talk a little bit about my experience as an artist in Periscope, I would say the group sessions and also my pairing with my mentor, everything was valuable, but I feel like I gained the most just knowing my personality, being able to have that one-on-one experience and digest what I was learning. There's a wealth of knowledge that was being provided for us as artists, and being able to, I'm a note taker, so I was taking notes, but being able to go back and digest every time we met with my group leader, with Mimi, was really helpful. It was in a small group, so there were other artists that were also asking questions too. But Mimi did a good job of helping us digest what we learned that day. And that happened every week. And then after the 8 to 9 weeks, I was paired with my mentor, who was Alan Fay at the time. And I was able to take everything that I learned and I don't want to get ahead of myself, Jonathan. So let me know if I'm talking too much.
That's okay. Well, tell me this, and then I'll pass it to Roy. But as you were kind of wrapping up the curriculum and moving into mentorship, what were the things that were on your mind? The questions that you had, like what was that like going into mentorship, meeting Alan, and sort of starting that relationship?
That's a great question. So I'd researched Alan a little bit, and so I knew that. My goal was to launch a nonprofit, but he had done that as well through Make Music Nashville with a team. And so I had questions around that. My big goal with him was to help me digest all that I had learned. Could he help support, knowing that he had experience with a nonprofit, giving me some type of helping me digest what I needed to do when it came to launching a nonprofit, and make it not feel so daunting, which he did an awesome job at doing that. And then on the flip side, with the Periscope pitch, teaching, I felt pretty comfortable with communicating ideas, but pitching in front of an audience of people was new to me. And so I needed someone to help bounce ideas off of and be able to practice my pitch with him. And then knowing that he had been through the process himself, he was a great resource, but just helping me like Yeah, calm me down. For one, calm me down. And then I have to say this too. I think the pairing, I have to commend Periscope, Jonathan, you and any, but the pairing was so essential and was really effective. Our dynamic, what I really liked that Alan did in the very beginning, we didn't even talk Periscope. We didn't talk our creative practice. He just wanted to get to know who I was. And so we connected from the jump. And I think connecting with him and having that opportunity to do that, knowing that he cared about me and then also my creative practice was really helpful moving forward. But I hope that answers your question, Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you mentioning the pairing because that is very intentional. And that's something that I think is important to know is that we're looking for the right mentor for the right artist. And so it's always this process of finding that really great match that's going to work in both directions. And so, Rory, you've been a mentor multiple times. Can you talk a little bit about your experience coming in for the first time and sort of what that has looked like for you and coming from your perspective as a mentor?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Good to be here. I was glad that you had those dates up on the previous screen, Andy, because I was trying to count on my drive into work this morning whether I had done this 6 or 7 times, and I could not quite come up with an answer. So anyhow, I've served as a mentor a number of times over the last number of years, and I would say it's been uniquely rewarding and satisfying, and really one of my favorite things that I get to do every year. Although I would say I probably have had a wide landscape of experiences depending on who my mentee is. Some of whom I'm still in touch with and still sit down with on a regular basis to brainstorm ideas and cheerlead and coach. One of whom ghosted me in the middle of the process and was not really able to engage with the course curriculum as they should have, and that didn't work out. So, as you would expect, I think there is a wide variety of experiences that come out, exactly as Bryson was saying, depending on who the mentee is. The two things I tend to really hit pretty emphatically when I sit down with my mentee for the first time. One is that the more you put into this, the more you will get out of that. And that I think is true of so many things. But really, I'm here to meet you where you are. But secondly, I'm not here to do the work for you, and that's because, it's not my business in both connotations of that. It's not my concern, and also it's not my company that you're trying to launch. This is for you. And so really, most of all, I think I'm there as a cheerleader, as a coach, as someone to offer directional steers. I'm happy to do, copy editing. I'm happy to do proofreading. We're happy to do rehearsals. We're happy to brainstorm connections or timelines or a wide variety of things. But also, I think it's really key to emphasize that, um, you know, when I first sit down with the mentee, I try to really stress that making it to the pitch competition in September is by no means a requirement or even a fit for every participant of the program. And indeed, of the 7 mentees I've had, only 3 have actually chosen to focus on the pitch. And I've been both very proud of them and perhaps a little proud of myself that of those last 3, 2 of whom have been winners at the competition. So there is tremendous value in that, but also there's enormous value in just going through the process. Whether you choose to focus on competing in the pitch, or whether you're even selected to make it that far. What we hope you get out of this is some, hands-on real-world experience with how to take what you've learned as part of the curriculum, married with your own ideas and creativity and entrepreneurial spirit and innovation and drive, and be ready to take that into the real world, right? And whether I think it's important to remember that the pitch competition is really just a a practice experience for what you're meant to walk out of, which is essentially a tight, 2 to 3 minute explanation of who you are, what you're trying to do, and how people you interact with can help and support you. That may take the form of taking the stage at a pitch competition. It may be when you bump into people in the real world as you're connecting with contacts, or people introduce you to people. It's a valuable tool to have in your arsenal, whether you choose to make it to the pitch competition or not. Is that helpful, Jonathan?
Yeah, absolutely. And one follow-up question though, Rory, I would love to hear sort of with the artists who didn't pitch, how did you work with them and how was that different than the ones that did end up pitching?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of whom just, really their idea wasn't fully baked enough to feel like they were able to articulate it and present it in a way that was going to be, compelling or impactful or dynamic. And some simply had other commitments in the course of that summer. Again, when
Mhm.
we as the mentor interact with the mentee, it's typically in May, as Jonathan and Annie said. And, they need to make a decision relatively quickly within probably the first 6 or 8 weeks, whether they want to focus on trying to make the pitch competition or not. Because there will be, as I recall, and please correct me if I have this wrong, but I think I have this right. There's a draft, kind of a rehearsal pitch in June, and then the actual quote unquote audition in July. And then by August, they'll know whether they're selected for September. And so there really isn't a ton of time to gear up for that. We kind of need to make that decision, or they need to make that decision with whatever guidance I can provide in the first few weeks.
Mhm.
Some may be looking to still define their products. Some may be looking to shift. Maybe they came in thinking that they wanted to go in this direction, and then over the course of the Periscope curriculum, they've decided that actually what they want to produce is that. And so
Mhm.
there's still more homework to be done before they're ready to take that out, for a test run. And some simply have other life commitments that will make it challenging to be there. One of the requirements, of course, of the pitch is that you have to be there in person. And of course,
Yeah.
during the pandemic a number of years ago, I had one mentee who was out of town and was not going to be able to make it. And so we chose to focus in other directions. So I think, you know, depending on where they're at, I've had some mentees who really have already stood up a business. One of my mentees a number of years ago was looking to launch a low carb line of pasta sauces and kind of ready
Mhm.
to ready to make Italian dishes. And she had already sold in her products into a number of specialty groceries across Middle Tennessee. I was looking to further expand that. And so she was in a very different place than some of my other mentees who really just have a kernel of an idea and are looking to shape and develop and find ways to articulate that, and perhaps begin to start accruing, financial support in some way. Some of your mentees may be doing this full time. Some may be doing this part time or even less than part time. So you'll really get a wide variety of participants. And I think, as Bryson was saying, it's really about finding that match and trying to find the right path forward for them for that specific that's individual case.
Thanks, Rory. I really appreciate that. Bryson, could you speak to your experience? Because you've also been a mentor. You came back and mentored someone. What was it like? What was the difference for you in that experience of being the mentee, going through that process, and then trying to walk with someone else through that process? How did that shift your perspective on things?
Great. Okay. Kind of similar to what Roy was just talking about. So, well, I'll talk about my approach first. So, I wanted to approach the relationship similar to how Alan approached mine, and connect with him first. And so we did connect through text. I wanted to find what was the best way for us to connect. And so me and Alan would meet in person. But if that wasn't what my mentee, what was most, I guess, fit his schedule the best, and texting or video call, whatever would work best for us to connect. But he also had some health complications at the time, not to go into too much detail. So we were connecting over the phone, but then he had to take a step away. And I talked to Annie about that relationship a bit too, but we connected the best we could. Got a chance to learn about what his creative practice was, but then he had to
Yeah.
step away. Yeah.
Well, and that's important to know too, right? Because real
Mhm.
life is happening as people are going through this program. And it may be family issues, it may be personal issues, health issues. Lots of those factors come into play. And that's really important to take into consideration and to understand that as people are trying to stand up their businesses, they have other responsibilities. They have full lives and families that they have to take care of and that they have to support. And so there's a lot going on, and it's really important to always be able to take that into consideration too, and to think about like where they are. And I really like what Rory said about meeting them where they are in the process. Rory, let me ask you this: what would you say was the most surprising thing about being a mentor that maybe you didn't expect as you came into being into this process originally?
Yeah, and so I'd say there's probably two things. One is just, how deeply rewarding it is. I think I love Periscope for so many reasons, but there's something for me at least tremendously inspiring and just kind of soul satisfying to see people with ideas who maybe have a wide variety of other commitments or experience who have the confidence and the drive and the motivation to bring that to life. And I especially love that for the artistic community or the creative community in Nashville because sometimes people feel as if, because of the way this town is set up with such a robust music industry, that all artists already have the business skills and the acumen and the know-how to stand up a business, and that really isn't the case. And so to be able to help creatives understand what how to get to these next steps is truly rewarding. The other thing that I think has surprised me and I think been satisfying is, I've worked with mentees across so many different categories or industries or lanes. And it's always, I think, really interesting, as Bryson was saying, you want to find that right match. And certainly, ABC and Jonathan and Annie do such a skillful job matching people up. But it's also, I think, been really rewarding to see what value I can provide to people in businesses that I have no personal boots on the ground experience with. I'm a marketing and communications exec. That's my background, so I know about brand positioning and strategy and those things. But I'm just hungry. I don't have any experience with launching a food product, or
Mhm.
um, uh, 2 years ago, my mentee was launching a business that was doing group um, engagement activities with songwriting. So she went when conferences come into town or cultural events for workplaces, she will gather them together, and for a fee, she will do a group songwriting experience together, and they will leave with a professionally written song. And again. I'm not a songwriter, but I'm able to understand how that business can be, grown or shaped in a way that will allow it to go in other places. And so I think it's terrific if you feel as if you and your mentee have, real one-to-one skills that are similar, but also, there's something nice about, you know, feeling as if you are boosting someone up without there being that sort of potential competitive nature. This is not about, what I'm doing and how you're entering the same field. This is about how I can just lift you up and get you to a place that is that feels satisfying and rewarding for where you want to go.
Wonderful. All right. Well, y'all, what I want to do now is I'm going to open it up, and people, if you are in attendance, you can raise your hand using the React feature on your Zoom. But I'm going to open it up, and we're going to do some questions for Rory and Bryson about their experience. If you have questions about mentorship and you want to hear directly from someone who has experienced it, this is a good chance to do that. So I'm going to remove our and kind of open it up so that we can see everyone. But you can raise your hand. There's a raise your hand button. If you have questions, if you don't want to unmute yourself and ask a question, you can also drop it in the chat and I'll ask it. But I would love to kind of open it up now.
Hi there. I'm James. First of all, this is such an exciting and incredible program to witness. I've had two friends go through the program. I was also there for the pitch presentation, I think two years ago at Oz. And so, honored to be here. So just a little bit for myself, I work in the television, film, and theater industry. And in Nashville, I have a performance troupe where we improvise a musical experience with a live band. I'm also a member and a performer at the Porch as a poet, a member of Art and Soul. So I have sort of like a few different offerings, or I guess spaces that I'm operating in. They're connected. I mean, they're all sort of performing arts spaces. And so I guess my question was, this being a very business-oriented program, are mentors ever encouraged to observe some of the training sessions to have a better context of what the mentee experiences are and how their services or offerings or mentorship experience can better serve them?
So your question is, have mentors come in and observe the actual classes themselves?
Yeah, and just kind of, have a better understanding of context of, what their journey is, throughout the.
We've not had mentors come in and observe the classes, although that is a great idea. We have had the people that have led classes have also been mentors. We have group leaders that have been mentors, that sort of thing. So there is I would say it's a permeable wall, so to speak, between mentorship and that other engagement. But that is certainly something that we would be open if someone was a mentor interested in mentoring and wanted to come in and observe a session, they could do that. The one thing that we try to do is we try to make sure that people don't reach out to you separate from us, like so that people in the class, a lot of times we'll hear a speaker, and after almost every speaker, about 5 people come up to you like, I want them to be my mentor. I want, like, they're the whole time they're in the program, they're thinking about that. So we try to be very careful and intentional about not letting them sort of bombard people or ask them. But I do think, yeah, like that's certainly something that could be possible for people to come in and have an opportunity to observe the classes. I think it's really rewarding, and you can learn a lot by observing it. So I think that would be a valuable experience.
Yeah, just to follow up, is there some sort of an opportunity where the mentors and the mentees, obviously the mentees are meeting each other through the program, but is there an opportunity where even the mentors get to gather in a space before the pitch presentation, where like the mentors and the mentees are all kind of like gathered in one space?
So we do the mentor orientation as the gathering before the mentorship portion starts. So we do that orientation. That is one thing. But during that process, there's not like a meetup of all the mentors. But every mentor that has ever mentored or that is on our list, they are invited to the kickoff event that happens this year. It'll be March 19th, and so that's when we sort of unveil the class, if you will. And so mentors are invited to that to experience that. And then the pitch event at the end, mentors are invited and encouraged to attend that. So over time, you would certainly get that experience of being able to meet other mentors and network with mentors and alumni at the kickoff and at the pitch event, sort of at the front end and the back end of the program.
Okay. I think the main thing that I was sort of considering is there some sort of opportunity, a time where the mentors kind of check in and be like, okay, how is the experience going for everybody? You know, are there some things that have worked really well and some things that are not, or it sounds like after the kickoff event, really, it's sort of the pitch presentation, and there really isn't sort of these touch points in the process.
Yeah, well, there's a touch. So the touch point is the orientation that happens before the end of the program. So after the kickoff, there would be the orientation, and then you would be paired with your mentee. And then we connect with mentors and mentees throughout the program, but that's usually individual. If there's something, help that needs to be provided, people ask for resources, that sort of thing. But there's not a formal gathering of everyone. I mean, I think that's a great idea, but right now that's not part of the calendar.
Have kind of an open door policy in the sense of if there, like we were saying, that if there's a friction point, or if there is just a general question, or if there's something someone's excited about, anybody can reach out to me at any time to have a conversation about where you are.
No, but James, that's great. Those are both great ideas, and appreciate
Mhm.
you sharing those. Does anybody else have any questions that we can touch base on? Yeah.
I do have a question as I'm hearing Rory talk. I did the Periscope training back in 2018, and then I served as a mentor 2 years ago. And my concern as I think about embarking in this role again is I'm an artist. I'm still trying to figure it out. It has been a real huge learning curve for me to have a business mindset. And so it was really helpful to move into that space of learning, even the language around it. So on the mentor side of things, I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. So I'm a little bit like hesitant to offer my services to someone when I'm still learning and adapting and figuring things out. Um, can someone speak into that and how we might offer? Do we offer what we do know? Do we offer what we are really good at?
I would just say that I think I appreciate your honesty and transparency, but I would also say that I think I have no doubt what you could bring to the table would be tremendous for a mentee. And I think sometimes it's that, in the trenches, real world experience is truly invaluable. And it doesn't all have to be this is the best way to go or this is the only way to go. It can be as much about sharing what you have learned along the way and where you have, where you've stumbled or what you've learned from that, I think can be as valuable, if not more so, than necessarily someone coming at it from a more academic standpoint. So I think I would not by any means rule yourself out or feel as if you don't have the skills or the value, the knowledge to provide. I think it sounds as if you would have an enormous amount to impart.
And I just want to add to that we do have a volunteer form that we have people fill out for any of our volunteer experiences. And I have some of the people that are here are already on our rolls, but for those who have not, even if we've known you for years, if we don't have a volunteer form from you, I'm going to send those out afterwards because that gives you an opportunity to say, these are my strengths, these are my skill sets, and this is what I'm interested in. And so knowing that information and not just taking a wild guess based on what I've seen in your resume, what I've seen in your website, what I know of you from Periscope, having that bit of input also helps us with that pairing process.
Well, nice to meet all of you. My name is Leslie Malega. I come from a completely different background. I am about 19 years, I've been an attorney, but I also have just a deep love for everything in the arts and was a dancer until I was about 35. So I've always loved the performing arts. Two questions that I have. One is I wanted to get a sense of what the time commitment really looks like in terms of, you indicated once per month, 1 hour. That seems like a very low contribution to me. And I would expect that there may be more support than that needed. So I just wanted to get a sense of what that really looks like from the people who have done it before. And then the second part of my question is really for those who, have mentored and come from some sort of business background, whether it be law or marketing, or as you indicated, wanted to get a sense of how much of kind of your personal business experience do you bring into it versus just being a sounding board and helping them think more globally?
Well, I'll say with me and I'll talk about me as a mentee.
Mm-hmm.
We did meet once a month, but it wasn't just set to that. My mentor expressed to me, if I wanted to meet more than that, we could. We just communicated each other's schedules after every time we met. We then decided when the next time we were going to meet would be. But I would say some of the most valuable feedback that I got from him was just through text and through calling. And so I would record my pitch and send it to him,
Mhm.
and then he would give me feedback. We
Okay.
did that quite a bit. But yeah, I don't think, and forgive me if I'm over speaking, or feel free to correct me, Jonathan, any. Um, but it doesn't have to be set to that. Like if you
Mhm.
guys decide to meet more, you can. But I think it's more of a foundation, so you guys have, you know, what the ground level is. You need to at least meet. Yeah.
Right.
And then I wanted to speak, well, your second question again too.
My second question was just about in terms of, for those who have a professional background in a specific area, how much of that do you actually bring into the mentorship versus just being more of a sounding board and giving ideas and, I think this might work really well. Like how much of it is kind of specialized to your business background versus, just kind of being more open to ideas, if that makes sense.
I'll speak a little bit to it, and I'm going to pass it. I'll pass it to you, Rory. The pairing, I think, for my situation, Alan had recently launched a profit that was similar to what I was doing, and so he could speak in many different facets into what I was planning to do. So that kind of, it worked out that way. There was a mentor mentee relationship that kind of birthed out of, I want to say this was class of 2024, but it wasn't through Periscope. It just happened. We just connected at the pitch, and then and so we met a couple times at a coffee house, and I supported him. But I would say his creative practice was far different from mine, and so what
Right.
he gleaned from me was the teaching and being able to. He wanted to develop a type of curriculum, and so I could support him with that. But to answer that question, and Jenny, your question too, you just never know. I wouldn't discount. I actually like that my mentor was really transparent with me with where he was, knowing that he was still building and developing in these areas, whether it's business or in his creative practice. That was really comforting for me to hear. And both as a mentee and then as a mentor, you just never know what you have experienced and what you are doing, no matter what place that you're at or in at the time, holds with your mentee. So yeah, I'll pass it over.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great, Bryson. Again, time commitment, um, I think you'll be surprised how much you can get done in, meeting once every 3 weeks, once a month. Certainly the summer tends to be a busy time for folks with personal travel or kids out of school, a variety of other things. And so I think that tends to work well. Again, a lot of it will be dictated by how much they're bringing to the table. Again, when if it feels like we're meeting once a month and we're having the same conversations because they're not going home and, it's not homework, it's more about are they really investing in themselves? Are they making progress? Are they thinking about things and building on it? Then, as Bryson said, I'm thrilled to sit down with them more frequently, or exactly as Bryson said, I certainly encourage my mentees, especially those who are focused on making it to the pitch competition, to script things out, to get really comfortable with it so that when they do hit that stage in front of hundreds of people and their mind goes blank, they have something to fall back on.
Right.
And so whether it's scripting, whether it's recorded videos, I've seen that as well. That's certainly a great way to engage outside of that. But again, if it feels like you're sitting down with someone and they're not holding up their end of the bargain, which is fairly weighty, fairly significant, then it may be that once a month is enough just to check in and fulfill that obligation.
Okay.
Um, I think to your second question, again, I think Bryson, hits it on the head. I don't think there's any obligation, for example, if you're an attorney to provide actual, official legal advice. I
Right.
think and also, the other thing that I think is probably key to touch on, which we haven't maybe spoken to yet, is that there's no obligation that your mentee takes all of your advice or your recommendation or follows through on that. Really, to kind of touch on what I started saying, it's their business and it's their vision, and I really want them to feel as if they have full ownership of it, and they are going in the direction and infusing it with their own drive and dreams and direction. So
Right.
that may help with that also, in that even if you were to, provide, an accounting plan or a marketing strategy, they're going to put it through their own filter, their own lens, and also, with all respect, kind of what they're capable to do at that point. Certainly I've talked with mentees about, one of the big parts of the pitch is they have to come up with an ask, and that's not because someone is necessarily writing them a check for that amount, but to show that they have thought out where they would apply some sort of funds if that was to be granted. And so that's as much a conversation around, for example, what a paid media or an advertising campaign might look like. But again, some of that is theoretical and some of that is, do I really think it's worth investing their own money if they do have those sort of resources? Where might that go? And, there it's as much kind of just talking through KPIs or metrics or way to evaluate success. Again, I think when you're on the front lines, you see just how much a lot of these mentees are bringing to the table with their time, their passion, sometimes their finances, and how to evaluate if it's working or not. And that I think is probably another critical piece. How do you know that you're making progress? What are your goals? How can you track against those?
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.